Please. So yeah, just to give you a bit of an overview, my name is Mike Brennan. I'm the National URBACT point, or the National Contact Point for URBACT in Ireland. I'm with the Eastern and Midland Regional Assembly. So if you have any questions that aren't answered by this presentation, please just drop me a line and my contact details will be at the end. I'm going to go through basically what is URBACT. Not everyone seems to be aware of what this particular program is. Go over some of the basics about who can take part, what does it do, how does it work. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the current program, which is obviously concluding, URBACT 3, how it's added value and been a benefit for the Irish partners that have been involved, and conclude the presentation by talking a little bit about URBACT 4, the upcoming new version of the program. So next slide, please. Okay, so give you a basics of URBACT. What is it? URBACT is the territorial cooperation program that lets cities and urban centres work together. So since URBACT 3, the current iteration kicked off in 2014, there's been about 428 unique partners. These have mainly been city governments with 70 different networks. And producing over nearly 620 integrated action plans to implement better urban development or implement change on the ground. Can we go next slide, please? Great. So how does it work? It allows cities to come together and develop integrated solutions to their common challenges by networking, learning from each other's experience, and identifying good practices that can be shared or co-created or developed. It does that by funding 3 types of networks. So these are action planning networks. Those are collections of cities which co-create solutions to common problems. Then there's implementation networks, where cities that already have integrated plans or strategic plans, they come together to share experiences and share solutions and share techniques to implement the plans. And finally, there's transfer networks. That's where you have a lead city that already has a good urban practice that it wants to transfer to other towns and cities across Europe. So we have the lead city with the good practice, and the network allows other, for want of a better term, follower cities to come along, learn from the lead city, and take the components of the good urban practice that work for their local context and implement in their city. Next slide, please. So for Irish partners, who can take part? Well, all of the Irish local authorities can become partners on URBACT. Now, as you know, the Irish situation in local governments, in local governance, is a bit different from many areas in Europe. So many cities and towns in Europe will have their own municipal structure, their own elected officials, etc. Whereas in Ireland, our local authorities are responsible for, in some cases, hundreds of towns. So when an Irish local authority wants to become part of an URBACT network, the local authority is the partner, but they must pick a defined urban area. So if Limerick is getting involved in a network, then it must pick a town or a Limerick city to be involved. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't take the learnings and spread them to your other towns in your jurisdiction. It just means that for the purposes of your activities on the project, you are going to be concentrating on a defined urban centre. Now, this can be of any size, okay? And particularly in URBACT 4, there is a focus on getting new and smaller cities involved. So in the Irish context, we've had partners and defined urban areas all the way up to our capital city, Dublin, to some of the other cities, Cork, Limerick, Waterford, and then all the way down to kind of small towns like Rathrum in County Wicklow, Donegal Town, Trim in County Meath. And I should also say that you can focus on a subset of a larger urban area. So in the case of the Dublin, the kind of greater Dublin area, the Dun Laoghaire, the discrete area within Dublin City, has been the focus of an URBACT network. So just want to give you that information, because really towns of any size can be involved in URBACT networks. So next slide, please. So the way URBACT works is it's all about the participatory method. So when you are an URBACT partner, you need to create a group, a URBACT local group, which is all of the relevant stakeholders you need to address the problem. So these usually consist of representatives from the partner agency, so this would be council staff or officers from across the council. So it's not just the road section or the park section or the PPN network or whatever. It's all of the people that you need to solve your problem. Additionally, representatives from the private sector are usually involved. These would be local business groups, local businesses, that sort of thing, possibly business improvement districts, any NGOs who might be, so for example, if you're working on homelessness or dereliction, there might be an NGO group active in your town that is focusing on this. They would be a good partner, and also citizens and community groups from the town, for example, Tidy Towns networks, etc. So you bring these stakeholders together to form this group, and it is not a top-down approach. It is not the council telling the group what's going to happen. It is the group co-creating the solution to the problem. These are the groups on the ground. Obviously, there's an exchange between cities as well to update on the progress that they're making, to exchange their activities, to see what is working in partner cities and can that be adapted to your local context. And important to note, URBACT does not fund capital expenditure. So it is in some way similar to Interreg Europe, as we heard before. It is mostly about the creation of plans and policy to solve problems, which are then done by your own resources. So next slide, please. So where are we at now? So URBACT 3 is the current program, and it's there's no further calls expected on this program. We'll get on to URBACT 4 in a minute. And the way it worked, it was grouped its networks into 5 main themes: with environment, physical urban development, inclusion, governance, economy. But it also generated a huge amount of resources, which are the URBACT toolbox, a library of information, and good urban practices. And usefully for us here in Ireland is the working language of URBACT is English. So all of these tools and information are available in English. Pretty much any urban situation or issue that you can think of has been addressed at some point by an URBACT network. So if you have an issue within your towns or cities that you think you could use some information on, I would encourage you to look through these resources. They're all free, they're all online, and they're all in English. Our Irish partners have been involved on networks aligned to the various themes. There's health and green space in Limerick, obviously that's environmental. There's urban security in Longford, which is looking at perceptions and actual physical security within the town. That would be the urban development one. The inclusion, this is the network called Access by Dublin City Council, is to promote access to cultural resources for all residents of the city. And there's governance, governance networks, that would be RU Urban, which is about the governance of allotments and private gardens within urban centres, which is Carlo is involved with. And then there's economic development networks, such as Find Your Greatness, which Limerick is involved as well. So there's a broad, hugely broad types and thematics involved in the networks that Irish partners have been involved in under URBACT. So we go to the next slide. So rather than kind of going through things in generalities, I thought I'd talk about why being involved in URBACT networks can be of added value to your towns and cities. And a great example is how Limerick got involved in a network called Tech Town. And this network ran from 2016 to 2018, and it focused on job creation through the digital economy. And the idea was that by building the digital economy, improving linkages between the actors, you would see a spillover to the wider city from this increased activities. It was about clustering, bringing together the actors so that they knew each other and collaborate, and grow the skills base in the city. Next slide, please. So, on the back of their participation in TechTown, Limerick was able to form a ULG, URBACT local group, of the major digital stakeholders. You can see them in the bottom right. So this is like Dell, University of Limerick, GM, like big heavy hitters. And that formed the basis of what is now the Limerick's Digital Leaders Network, which is a big stakeholder gathering. It meets quarterly to define, initiate, implement, and review projects, identify current and future desired capabilities, collaborate on cross-organizational funding proposals, identify regional skills base that obviously feeds into the employment boards, etc. Participate in the definition of policies and standards. So that's again the co-creation of policy with the municipality. So that URBACT approach from that they started with on URBACT Network, they have carried on through structures that are still with them today. And just to give you an idea of what that meant, was through TechTown, they were able to create the Digital Leaders Network. From that, they have now successfully leveraged that consortium partners for Horizon 2020 funding applications. So you can see that the URBACT network was the beginning of a collaboration that has continued to successfully acquire additional EU funding. We go next slide, please. So Limerick got on so well with URBACT that they've decided to keep going. Limerick are now currently involved in 2 more URBACT networks, Health and Green Space, which again, they have leveraged their URBACT local group in Health and Green Space to feed into another Horizon 2020 application that they were successful in for Go Green Routes. And they have another network called Find Your Greatness, which is all about brand recognition of cities, which has really invigorated their Smart Limerick strategy. So you can see the URBACT network again acts as a basis for policy development, stakeholder recruitment, which they have leveraged to achieve their other strategic goals. So next slide, please. So URBACT 4. So this is the new one. The program has been sent to the Commission for review. So it is being reviewed. New calls are expected. When I wrote the slide, they were talking about maybe June. It's not going to be June. It's going to be September. So they haven't announced the details of the calls, or there's no guide for applicants yet, but this will be launched in June this year at the URBACT City Festival. Thematic objectives. They've talked about this Interreg specific objective, which is better cooperation and governance. I have been told by the Secretary yesterday that the 5 themes that they were talking about initially in URBACT 3, let me just remind myself what they're about. The environment, physical, urban development, inclusion, governance, and economy will also be present in URBACT 4, and there will be 3 overarching themes, which would be climate action, gender recognition, and the digital transformation. So those 3 overarching themes should be present in the workings of any network, that no matter its kind of core objective. So that's something to keep in mind, that if you are getting involved in one of the URBACT 4 networks, that you should, in your proposal, outline how it will address climate, how it will enhance gender equality, and how it will contribute to the digital transformation. So that's just something to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Okay, so to give you an idea of what's new and what's different, or sorry, what's the same and what's different between URBACT 3 and 4, the commonalities are there's similar types of networks, these action planning networks, where groups of cities come together to solve common problems. Transfer networks, which are a lead city with a good urban practice, transferring that good urban practice to partner cities. There'll still be capacity building activities, which would be available for partner cities to get involved in, which would include the URBACT e-University, which is an online couple of day event where URBACT brings together partners from the different networks to do a bit of training on how do you create a plan, or how do you recruit partners, or how do you run your URBACT local group meetings, etc. They'll be continually adding to the URBACT toolbox, so that bank of tools for cities to solve their problems, the good urban practice case studies, etc. And there'll be knowledge and communication activities, which would be info days and things like that, etc. So some of the novelties will be this new type of network, which is an innovation transfer mechanism. So what this is linking with the Urban Innovative Actions, which is a separate EU program. So Urban Innovative Actions are large-scale projects which implement pretty out there and new solutions to urban problems. And where these innovative transfer mechanisms come in is if a city has successfully implemented an urban innovative action, URBACT comes in and says, well, now we will transfer that to partner cities. So that's basically the idea. And also there'll be new countries eligible, which in accession countries. So that's about it. Final slide.